Welcome back to another episode of NBA by Jellyman, episode 9. So this week we've got the week 8 review, team and player consistencies, deep dive analysis, and also the week 9 preview. So I've got 6 topics today. So firstly, we're going to cover off the Sports This by Jellyman example day, week 8 review, so winners, losers, and then highlighted stats. Topic 3, player and team consistencies, and then deep dive. This week we're going to go into 4 teams with their players and the key player. So player and team insights for them. NBA Week 9 preview, and then Tuesday a quick look into head-to-head lines, totals discussion, also some player stats as well. But look, we'll jump into it. Topic 1, we've got the Sports Tips by Jellyman example day, which was Monday, the 12th of December. We ended on just over plus 5 units, sent out 10 recommendations, and those recommendations looked as so. New Orleans Pelicans minus 4.5. That was paying 198. We put 2.5 units on that. They were obviously going in their second leg against the Suns at home. The Suns are 16-10. They were without Booker, staying in New Orleans. The Pelicans had just beaten the Suns 128-117. And then a bit of push and shove towards the end after that Zion dunk, which made things interesting. But we sort of looked at the line, then looked at, I guess, the players on the Pelicans, how they've been playing compared to how the amount of points the Suns have been giving up, and sort of like the Pelicans line in that one. We also had Zion 25 plus points, 6 plus rebounds, and 4 plus assists with a bet return. That was 1.5 units. That was at 275. He actually he hit the points, hit the rebounds, and twice actually hit 4 assists, but then they took one off. So it was obviously more than that 5 dribbles or so, I think it is, to the hoop once you pass to a player. NBA rules are a bit different than the European rules or wherever else in the world that it may refer to. But obviously that one ended up being a return. So that was the first 2 tips on the first email that went out earlier this morning. Then we jump over to email number 2. So we had a player prop. Julius Randle over 23.5 points for the New York Knicks. That hit. Siakam, 25 plus points and 7 plus rebounds. That didn't hit. And then James Harden over 9.5 assists. He ended with 16. Randle's hit easily within 27 minutes. He didn't play most of the rest of the game. He has had 24 plus points in 4 of his last 6 games. And then only had Sabonis protecting the paint. So, he would match up against, our analysis was he would match up against Robinson, which would mean Randle would get a smaller defender, likely a Barnes or a Murray if he did play, which he didn't end up playing anyway. Siakam, he had been killing it of late, just had a rough start. I think had 3 fouls within the first quarter and then a 4th foul in the second quarter when he went back in quickly. So he couldn't really get going. I think he ended on about 17 or 19 points within the end of the game. Just missed his rebounds, but obviously didn't play a lot of odd minutes because of those early foul trouble. Then Harden hit easily. He had 12 assists in his last game. And then against Charlotte last season, he had 13 assists. So he was quite put in well stead for that one. So that one just missed. That was paying 7.19 through bets 365. We put 1 unit on that one. So that was an L. Then we move on to email. Oh, that's still on email 2, sorry. So we had the Lakers and Anthony Davis 25 plus points for $2 on Bet365 as 2.5 units. We obviously like the Lakers traveling into Detroit. They needed to get a win against the Pistons because, well, the Lakers need every win they can get. And they actually LA beat the Pistons 128-121. So once again, it was a 7-point margin. But we just couldn't trust the line because of Detroit playing so well towards the back end of games and closing in margins of late. So we just like them head-to-head. But then obviously AD, 25 plus points. He's had 25 plus points in his last 10 games. And then Biggs first, Detroit had been killing it. Jackson Jr. 20 points, Zion 29, Bam 21. So we liked Davis in that one. So that one was obviously a win. Then we moved to the Charlotte Hornets versus Philadelphia 76ers. We had 3 tips in this one, so 5, 6, and 7. The 76ers minus 8.5, or we ended up with 7.5 as being a good mark, and then over 214.5 points. 250, Bet365, 2.5 units. Obviously, the Hornets traveling. They've been losing of late, and then Philadelphia knocked off the Lakers, but allowed them to go to overtime, but they've been playing a lot better than that. Obviously, Joel Embiid had 53 points. We actually had him also for 35 points. So that was a 250 on Sportsbet on one unit. And then D'Anthony Melton, after a huge game, last game in the 3-point column, he's actually made 3+3s in his last 3 games. So we liked him to continue that streak, with obviously Harden playing again. And then Embiid in that post spot, sort of dishing to those fellas out in the 3-point line. So that was 3 of 3 in that game, which means that's now 5 for the day. And then we look at the last 3 games, or the last 3 selections that went out. We had the Bulls, and then total points over 221.5, paying 250 for 2 units on Sportsbet. Now the Bulls, if you have watched that game, if you saw that AJ Griffin, the last 2 seconds of the game, DeRozan got an inbound, shot it, was fouled on the 3-point line, went to the free throw line, hit down 3 threes, 0.5 seconds left. Hawks, timeout, 2 timeouts left in overtime. Timeout, go down the other end. T.Young inbound the ball. Nope, didn't inbound it. Timeout. And then someone else inbounded the ball. And then AJ Griffin on a backdoor cut against Derek Jones Jr., who can lead, makes a circus shot to win the game. So it's fair to say that one was a bad beat, but then again, it probably shouldn't have been gone to overtime. The Hawks probably should have won it. And then total points wouldn't have gone over if it didn't go to overtime. So that's one to look at. We go, that was 50-50. And then we also had a same game multi for that one, knowing there was going to be a lot of points, or likely to be a lot of points in this one. We had T.Young 25-7, DeRozan 25+ points, Levine 20+ points, Capela 10-10, and Vucevic 10-7. That was paying $6.50 on Bet365 for 1 unit. Young was the only one that missed. He had 19 points and shot terribly from the field. Obviously had a lot of assists, but he was the only one, so that's 1 leg missed. Also, a little bit of a bad beat, I reckon, with T.Young having no other stars around him. Capela is a star, but more assists than points, and didn't really shoot well after coming off a 33-point performance. And then our last one of the day was the Milwaukee Bucks Rockets. We didn't like the Bucks line. We probably should have taken the Houston's line looking at it, but we still like the Bucks head-to-head against Houston after beating the Rockets in Milwaukee on the 23rd of the 10th by 125-105. But we had the Bucks, and then Holiday 5+ rebounds and 5+ assists. Holiday obviously hit. He actually had 25, 6, and 8 for the game. But the Bucks lost, and it was late game execution. Obviously, Chris Middleton going out early with a bit of an injury. But that was the day. So obviously 5 of 10, running at 50%, but at plus just over 5 units. So it could have been a lot bigger of a day, obviously, if those Bulls ones hit. But that is what it is. But that's an example day of how we sort of send out everything. So that's Sports Tips by Jellyman segment. As mentioned, sort of like, follow, subscribe, that area. And this is a segment, NBA by Jellyman. So look, we'll jump into topic 2, which is the Week 8 review, winners, losers, and highlighted stats, as well as we'll include some insights about those specific games and what it means for those teams. But Tuesday, way back last Tuesday, we had 8 games. The Clippers beat the Hornets 119-117 in Charlotte. Paul George in return 19-7. PJ Washington 26 points. The Bucks beat the Magic 109-102 in Orlando. Giannis had 34 and 13. Thunder beat the Hawks in Atlanta 121-114. SGA 35 points. Murray 24 points. Obviously would then go on to injure himself and not be available the rest of the week. The Celtics beat the Raptors 116-110 in Toronto. Tatum had 31 and 12. Siakam 29, 8 and 7. The Rockets beat the Sixers 132-123 in double overtime in Houston. It's quite an interesting game there. Embiid had 39 and 7. Green had 27 points. The Grizzlies beat the Heat 101-93 in Memphis. Obviously, no real stars for the Grizzlies. Obviously, Brooks and Jones played, but no Morant, no Jackson Jr. A few people rested. Hero had 23 and 13. Tyus Jones had 28 and 10. Mavs beat the Suns 130-111 in Dallas. Actually smashed the Suns 8 and 20 and 8. Luka 33, 6 and 8. Pacers beat the Warriors, which was an interesting one, 112-104 in Golden State. Rookie Nembhard, 31, 8 and 13. And then Thompson had 28 points. And Curry was held under, I think he only had 12 points. I'm thinking back now. Then moving on to Wednesday. Wednesday had 3 games. The Cavaliers beat the Lakers 116-102 in Cleveland. James had 21 and 17. 80 went out early with illness. Mitchell had 43 points. Pistons beat the Heat 116-96 in Miami. Bogdanovich 31 points. Hero 34 points. And then the Mavs beat the Nuggets on a back-to-back 116-115 in Denver. Luka 22, 10 and 12. Aaron Gordon had 27 and 8. Thursday had 11 games. The Magic beat the Clippers 116 to 111 in Orlando. Wagner, 20 points and 13. Not Franz, his brother. Mann had 19 and 9. And then the Nets beat the Hornets 122 to 116 in Brooklyn to continue a good home sort of stand for them. Irving had 33 points. Oubre Jr. 28 points. Knicks beat the Hawks 113 to 89 in New York. Randall had 34 and 17. The Raptors beat the Lakers 126 to 113 in Toronto. Siakam had 25, 10 and 7. The Bulls beat the Wizards 115 to 111 in Chicago. Porzingis had 28 and 9. Vucevic had 25 and 11. Bulls actually had 3 players, 25 plus points. You can imagine who those 3 players were. Vucevic, Levine, and DeRozan. Grizzlies beat the Thunder 123 to 102 in Memphis. SGA had 26. Ja had a triple-double, 26, 13, and 11. The Bucks beat the Kings in Milwaukee 126 to 113. Sabonis 23, 12, and 7. Giannis had 35, 6, and 7. The Wolves beat the Pacers 121 to 115 in Minnesota. Halliburton 26 and 15. Edwards 26, 8, and 8. Pelicans beat the Pistons 104 to 98 in New Orleans. Hayes 17 and 12. Zion 29 and 10. The Jazz beat the Warriors 124 to 123 in Utah. Poole 36, Clarkson 22 and 9. The crazy ending in that one was obviously the Jazz were up by a bit. The Warriors closed it in. They then inbound the ball. Poole has it, gets it stripped. They go down the other end. Jazz, that is, get a layup, and then go back down the other end. Jazz win. So quite a nuts ending in that one because the Warriors should have had that game sealed. The Warriors obviously didn't have a lot of key players in that one as well. So it should have been one the Jazz should have won anyway, being in Utah. But quite a high-scoring game. And then the Celtics smashed the Suns 125 to 98 in Phoenix. Brown and Tatum both had 25 each. It was 69 to 42 in the first half. And we'll cover it off a bit later in the stats and consistencies about Phoenix, about them letting in points at the moment. Friday had 3 games. The Heat beat the Clippers 115 to 110 in Miami. And then PG, he had 29, 8, and 7. Bam had 31 and 10. The Spurs beat the Rockets 118 to 109 in San Antonio. Smith Jr. 23 points and a few threes. Johnson had 32 and 7, and the Spurs broke an 11-game losing streak. Bit of a tanking streak there, potentially. Nuggets beat the Blazers 121 to 120. Jokic had 33, 10 and 9. Lillard 40 and 12. Obviously, that also had a crazy ending. Murray, obviously, clutch towards the back end of the game. Lillard clutch towards the back end of the game, but Murray wins out on that one. We thought Lillard had it sealed, but there was enough time for Murray on the clock to end that one. Saturday had 10 games. The Knicks beat the Hornets 121 to 102 in Charlotte. Randall 33, Barrett 26, Rozier 24, Oubre Jr. 22 points. Obviously a good little combo there if you got that one. Pacers beat the Wizards 121 to 111 in Indiana. Kuzma 27, KP 29, Halliburton 23, and Hield 28. Another good combo. That's something to look at as well for, I guess, all of those 4 teams there. It's 20-plus points for each of those main players. Each of those, I guess, lower-ended Western Conference teams or middle-of-the-pack Western Conference teams, they've got their 2 key players that are always scoring 20 points. And if you combine them together from the other team, it obviously gets a nice little juicy multi around that $8, $9 mark, around that 20, 25-point mark anyway. Magic beat the Raptors 113 to 109 in Orlando. Banchero, 23 points. Wagner, 34 points. Siakam, 36, 9, and 7. Trent Jr., 20 points. Now, that's the first leg of the Magic and the Raptors. We'll go to the second leg on Monday, but Magic won both. Hint, hint. Nets beat the Hawks 120 to 116 in Brooklyn. Young, 33 points. Bogdanovic, 31 points. Durant, 34. Irving, 33. Another good combo there. Kings beat the Cavs 106 to 95 in Cleveland. Sabonis, 18, 8, and 6. Levert, 22, 6, and 6. But the Cavs go down at home. One of their rare losses at home. The Lakers beat the Sixers. Sorry, that should be the right way around. Sixers beat the Lakers 133 to 122 in Philadelphia. Embiid had 38, 12, and 5. AD had 31 and 12. Obviously, with that one, if you watched it back, it is a good game to go watch back the last 3 minutes because it was nuts. But then Philadelphia come out victorious in the end with Harden taking over in overtime. The Grizzlies beat the Pelicans in Memphis. Jackson Jr., 20 points. The Pelicans beat the Suns for the first time, 128 to 117 in New Orleans. Aiden had 25 and 14. Zion had 35 and 7. The Wolves beat the Jazz 118 to 108 in Utah. Russell had 30 points, Beasley 23 points. The Bucks beat the Mavs 106-105 in Dallas. Giannis 28 and 10 and fouled out. Luka 33, 6 and 11. That last shot, the Bucks knew the play. Luka knew the Bucks knew the play, and that's why he threw his hands up in the air. But and we don't say it's his fault, but they could have got a timeout, advanced the ball, and had 6 or 7 seconds rather than trying to go for the win, get trapped, call timeout with only 2.5 seconds. So whose fault is it? It's no one's fault specifically, but there was definitely a better tactic towards the back end of the game to take the timeout, get a play, have a lot more time to work with. But that's not how it panned out. Sunday's games, we had 8 games. Spurs beat the Heat in Miami to make it 2 in a row, 115-111. Butler, 30 points. Johnson, 21 points. The Nets beat the Pacers, 136-133 in Indiana. The Nets, no starters. Cam Thomas had 33 points. Halliburton, 35 and 9. Not one the Pacers should have dropped, but they did. Quite a high-scoring game. No defense, as Indiana don't play defense. The Clippers beat the Wizards, 114-107 in Washington. George, 36. Kuzma, 35. KP, 25 plus points as well. Cavs beat the Thunder 110-102 in Cleveland. Mobley and Allen both had 20 plus points. Quick insight there is OKC struggled versus bigs. So obviously they've got Robinson Earl, and then Williams at that sort of 5 and 4 position. And then they've got Dort, SJ, and Giddey. They're not overly tall, not main defenders. So any bigs that come up against the Thunder, look at their points and rebounds over in that one because of the size of the Thunder. Although they do get up and down the floor. That's a good insight there. Bulls beat the Mavs 144-115 in Chicago. No Luka. DeRozan had 28 points. The Warriors beat the Celtics 123-107 in Golden State. Brown 31 points. Curry 32 points. Thompson 30.4 points. Tatum was average. So look at him to bounce back potentially in his next game because he was very, very down in his last game and against the Golden State Warriors once again. Obviously the finals rematch there. It was interesting to see how Golden State played defense against both Brown and Tatum. They just clogged the paint, and then they were just rushing out on shooters. So it was really interesting to see them close up the paint, but then be able to spread because of their versatility. And Kuminga also guarding Tatum really bothered him with that length, but then also his speed and movement. So it was a real interesting watch there, and you could see the Warriors competing. The Nuggets beat the Jazz 115-110 in Denver like they should because the Jazz rested a lot of their key players. Jokic 31, 12 and 14. Murray 30 points. Seems like he's starting to get his mojo back. Blazers beat the Wolves 124-118 in Portland. Gobert had 24 and 9. Lillard 36 and 8. Quick insight here. Both sides struggle versus the pick and roll. So obviously for Minnesota, they have Gobert. So if a point guard, shooting guard, whoever has a pick and roll with Gobert in it and he stands off, the guard can just shoot over it. Or if he comes up but he's not in defensive stance, the guard blows by him for an easy layup. So just something to watch with, I guess, guards and good screening bigs against Gobert. And then Nurkic is the same. So obviously the Blazers do struggle a little bit on defense, but they've got such a good offense, it doesn't really matter. But Nurkic is the same. Often likes to stay in the paint, or if he does come out, he's slow to react, whether it's a three-pointer or whether it's a drive-by. So something to look at there is, guards or shooting guards who like to use the pick and roll against both two sides should have their points over in that game. Awesome threes made as well because of the way Gobert and Nurkic like to guard the paint. That's a quick insight there. Monday had 7 games. So obviously today, Pelicans beat the Suns 129-124 in New Orleans. No Booker. Ayton had 28 and 12. Zion 35 and 8. The Lakers beat the Pistons 124-117 in Detroit. AD had 34, 15 and 7. Bogdanovich 38. The Knicks beat the Kings 112-99 in New York. Sabonis 20 and 12. RJ and Randall both had 27 points. The Magic on the second leg against the Raptors, they beat them 111-99 in Orlando. Just check. It was almost the same score, 113-109, 111-99 this time in Orlando. VanVleet 20 points, Banchero 20 points and 12 rebounds. The Sixers beat the Hornets, thrashed the Hornets 131-113 in Philadelphia. Rozier and Oubre 29 each. Embiid had 53 points. Harden also had 16 assists. The Hawks beat the Bulls in OT, already sort of covered it off, 123-122. DeRozan had 34, 13 and 8. Bogdanovich had 28 points and a crazy shot over the backboard. If you get a chance, go watch it. It is nuts. And then Young was clutch sort of late. The Rockets beat the Bucks 97-92 in Houston. Holiday had 25, 6 and 8. Green had 30 and 7. That is topic 2, done and dusted. Obviously, quite a bit to sort of, quite a bit of information to suck in there, but we sort of break it down in the next segment in topic 3 with the player and team consistencies. So, as we always do, in the show notes will be these player and team consistencies for you to take out, put in your notes, and have a look day to day. Obviously, when you're putting stuff together. So topic 3, we'll start off with the Hawks. T.Young, 9+ assists in 6 of his last 7 games, and C.Capela, 11+ rebounds in his last 10 games. As you would have seen, we put those two together. I'm in a bit of a multi today, but without Collins and Murray on the Hawks at the moment, they are loving teaming up together. And then team consistencies for the Hawks, 226+ total points in 5 of their last 6 games. That's them allowing points and scoring points. Even without Collins and Murray, they seem to be getting up and down the floor and working on defense as well, but trying to get a lot of transition basketball without the key players in that lineup. The Celtics player consistencies, Brown's had 25+ points in 10 of his last 11 games. He's had 7+ rebounds in his last 6 games. And then Tatum, 7+ rebounds in 5 of his last 6 games. And Brogdon, 16+ points in 5 of his last 7 games. Now, quickly on the Celtics with the rebounds for Brown and Tatum there, is obviously without Horford's in and out of the lineup, but then Griffin comes in. But then a lot of the time they play that small ball with Grant Williams at the 5, and then those sort of 2, 3 Smart, and then White as well on the court together, which means Brown and Tatum need to get on the boards, which they have been doing so. So it's an interesting one to put together there. The Brooklyn Nets, so KD, 29+ points in 7 of his last 8 games. A lot of home games there, but he can take that same form on the road. Also, 4+ rebounds and 4+ assists in his last 11 games. So a nice little combo there. And then Kyrie, 27+ points in 4 of his last 5 games. The team consistencies for the Nets, they've won 7 of their last 8 games, and they've scored 111+ points in 8 of their last 10 games. So obviously scoring the ball very well. And have actually played some defense of late as well. The Hornets, Rozier and Oubre. So Rozier, 22+ points in his last 8 games, and then Oubre Jr., 20+ points in his last 8 games as well. So those two are a nice little combo together. As we mentioned, those teams sort of lower down in the East, those players need to score for their side to be any chance. And they obviously get a lot of shots up, which helps. The Hornets, they've lost their last 5 games, and they've also allowed 116+ points in 6 of the last 7 games as well. The Bulls, DeRozan, 26+ points in 10 of his last 12 games, 6+ rebounds in his last 6 games, and then 4+ assists in his last 10 games. Levine, 20+ points in 7 of his last 8 games. And then team consistency there. The Bulls have allowed 110+ points in 8 of their last 9 games. And the Bulls have also scored 111+ points in 9 of their last 10 games. So scoring, but also allowing scores to come in there. Obviously, DeRozan and Levine are always good for 25 and 20+ a piece, but DeRozan's numbers have lifted over the last sort of 6 to 10 games in that rebounds and assist column, doing a lot more for the Chicago Bulls to try get a win. The Cleveland Cavaliers, Mobley, 15+ points and 10+ rebounds in 6 of his last 8 games. Obviously, a lot of them without Allen, but he's been able to have that same form with Allen coming back into the lineup. Talking about Allen, 8+ rebounds in his last 3 games. Obviously, they're without Mitchell at the moment, or were without Mitchell, and then but a few inconsistencies rolling to that side, just with ins and outs with injuries. So there's no team consistencies at the moment for Cleveland. The Dallas Mavericks, it's just all about Luka here. 30+ points in 5 of his last 6 games, 6+ rebounds in his last 4 games, and 8+ assists in 10 of his last 11 games. He's actually one we'll deep dive into about the shooters around him when they shoot well and being at home and everything like that. But we'll touch on that in another segment. The Denver Nuggets, also another team we'll quickly touch on about how Jokic works with Murray and Gordon and the rest of the team. But Jokic, 30+ points in 3 of his last 4 games, 10+ rebounds in 7 of his last 9 games, and then 8+ assists in his last 7 games, which we'll touch on. Murray, 20+ points in 6 of his last 8 games, directly correlates, obviously, with Nikola playing well. Gordon, 17+ points in 7 of his last 10 games, very similar there. 4 of their last 5 games have been within 8 points or less. They're not blowing out teams like they were in the previous 5 games, but they're allowing 110+ points in their last 5 games, hence why they are close games. Detroit, Bogdanovich, 18 plus points in 14 of his last 16 games. Obviously, the Detroit Pistons' main scorer. The Pistons have lost 7 of their last 9 games, but all 7 losses have been by 6 plus points. But their line usually sits at that minus 10.5. So as we said about the Lakers, we were unsure about taking the Lakers line because of how the Pistons can close within that last sort of 2-3 minutes of play and keep on playing hard. Golden State Warriors, so Curry 25 plus points in 5 of his last 7 games and then 6 plus assists in his last 4 games. Thompson, 20 plus points in 6 of his last 7 games. The Warriors' last 9 wins have all been by 7 plus points, so looking into their line. And then 120 plus points in 7 of the last 9 games. So a lot of wins there. And then a lot of scoring there for Golden State. The Rockets, apart from today, they had allowed 118 plus points in 8 of their last 10 games. So they have been allowing a lot of points, but locked up on the Bucks today at home. Maybe it's on the road, but it's something to look into depending on who they are playing. The Pacers, Halliburton, 23 plus points and 9 plus assists in his last 3 games. But the Pacers are allowing an average of 120 plus points over their last 11 games, but they are averaging 114 plus points per game across their last 11 games. So, 134 total points. So any team that plays Indiana, look at the points over and point scoring for all the players there. The LA Clippers, so Paul George, 36, 7 and 6, 29, 8 and 7 in his last 2 games, so he's in some form. And then Kawhi, 6 plus rebounds in his last 3 games. The Lakers, Davis, 25 plus points in his last 11 games, 12 plus rebounds in 11 of his last 12 games. LeBron, 20 plus points in his last 9 games. The team consistencies for LA there, 230 plus total points in 8 of their last 9 games. We won't go into it again, but it seems like they've found their identity, which is play defense, get out and run and score. Don't get stuck in the half court. And then also just make teams and the other team get up shots quickly. The Grizzlies, Morant, 5 plus rebounds in 13 of his last 14 games, and then 10 plus assists in 5 of his last 7 games. Jackson Jr., 20 plus points in 7 of his last 9 games. The Grizzlies have won 5 games in a row, and all 5 wins have been by 8 plus points. Miami Heat, so we've got Butler, 25 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games. Bam, 21 plus points in 6 of his last 8 games. And then Hero, 19 plus points in his last 6 games. Team consistencies there. We have the Heat. They've lost 4 of their last 6 games, and it's been about defense for them. They've allowed 110 plus points in 5 of their last 6 games. So once again, why are they losing games? It's because they're giving up defensively / allowing points defensively. And for what is one of the better teams in the league defensively, they are struggling. But we will give them a bit of grace because they have a lot of key players out at the moment. Lowry's out at the moment. And then obviously Butler coming back in will help the defense, but their depth is lacking. So what that means is the main players have to play a lot more minutes, which means defensively they lack because they are tired. So obviously look at teams against the Heat to score a bit more points than usual. The Bucks, so it's Holiday, 17 plus points in his last 6 games, and then 5 plus rebounds in his last 6 games, and then 5 plus assists in his last 10 games. Bobby Portis, 8 plus rebounds in 9 of his last 10 games. Giannis has slackened off the last couple of games. Obviously, a bit more focus on him. And then the Bucks have won 7 of the last 9 games. Obviously, didn't win this game against Houston, but 7 of their last 9 games have been within 10 points or less. So, unlike what we've seen in previous seasons with the Bucks and earlier this season, is they love to cover lines. They love to win by big margins. We haven't seen that this year. So I'd say a majority, maybe 60-odd% of their games have been within that 10 points or less, which means they're winning closer. Which means those big lines and big point differentials aren't exactly them right at this second, but that may change. Minnesota Timberwolves, obviously without Cat at the moment, but Edwards, 25 plus points in 7 of his last 8 games. And then Russell stepped up to the plate as well, 24 plus points in his last 4 games. And Rudy, 16 plus points in his last 3 games. The T-Wolves, 118 plus points in 5 of their last 6 games. So that's points 4. But in their last 5 games, they've been within 10 points or less, wins or loss. So I think they're 3-2 over the last 5 games. So they're playing quite well even without Cat. I think for them, and it's hard to say, but they should be looking at trading either Rudy or Cat because that team and offense and defense runs a lot better with those 3 stars and the guys around them. So I don't know what they're going to do there, but it's interesting to see how the Timberwolves are playing with those 3 or a core 3 set of people there. The New Orleans Pelicans, absolutely dominant at the moment. Zion, 25 plus points in his last 6 games, 6 plus rebounds in his last 7 games. Quite a few 30-point games in there as well. Big Val, 10 plus rebounds in 8 of his last 10 games. And then CJ, 4 plus assists in his last 6 games. Consistency's there. They've won 9 of their last 10 games, so probably one of the hottest teams in the league, with the Celtics getting knocked off. And then 6 of those 9 wins by 11 plus points as well. And then 117 plus points for in 5 of those 6 games, 5 of the last 6 games. So the Pelicans are on a tear at the moment, and they're without Ingram, they're without Jones, which is quite a scary prospect because the rest of the players are playing so well as well. So there's a lot of depth there for New Orleans. The New York Knicks, they've won their last 4 games and all 4 wins by 11 plus points, which is quite astounding to stay. And they've sort of slowly creeping up there, depending on who they got next. Randall, 24 plus points in 5 of his last 7 games. 7 plus rebounds in 7 of his last 8 games. RJ, 15 plus points in 9 of his last 10 games. Had a couple of 20-point games in a row as well. OKC, SGA sort of slackened off a bit the last couple of games. Slackened off, still had 23 and 26. Giddey, 10 plus rebounds in 4 of his last 5 games. 4 plus assists in his last 5 games. Team consistencies, the Thunder have allowed 117 plus opposition points per game. The Orlando Magic, Bonchero, hopefully we're saying that correctly. If not, let me know. 20 plus points in 7 of his last 8 games. 5 plus rebounds in 5 of his last 6 games. Wagner, 23 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games. And then the Magic, they've won their last 3 games. Obviously, 2 of them being against the Raptors, but still 3 in a row for the Magic. The Phoenix Suns, Booker, obviously last game out, but 20 points or less in his last 4 games. Hopefully a bit of a freshen up. We'll see him come back with a bit of vengeance. 8 and 20 plus points in 4 of his last 5 games, and then 10 plus rebounds in 10 of his last 13 games. Look for his points to stay up around that mark with Chris Paul back as well. The Suns have lost their last 4 games, 2 to New Orleans, Boston, and Dallas. So quite a few good teams there. But it's off the back of defense. They're giving up 120 plus points in 5 of their last 6 games. So it's all about defense for the Suns, which is usually pretty tight for them. The Philadelphia 76ers, Embiid, 30 plus points in 9 of his last 10 games, 35 in his last 4 games, obviously just coming off a 50 piece. Embiid also 7 plus rebounds in 11 of his last 12 games. And then Harden, 16, 12, and 7 assists in his last 3 games. So those assist numbers are back up there. And the shooters around those guys are shooting well as well. So Melton, Harris, Milton. Obviously, when Maxey comes back in, I'm sure he'll come in red hot as well. The Portland Trailblazers, so Simons, 22 plus points in 5 of his last 6 games. Lillard, 36 and 40 points in his last 2 games. Hart, always on the board, 6 plus rebounds in his last 4 games. Consistencies there. Blazers, 116 plus points in their last 4 games. And then they've won 3 of their last 4 games. So hand in hand there, scoring a lot of points, getting wins. The Sacramento Kings, player consistencies. Obviously, Fox was out the last couple of games, but he had 20 points or less in his last 7 games. Sabonis, 15 points in 7 of his last 9 games, 12 plus rebounds in his last 4 games, 6 plus assists in 10 of his last 11 games. And then for the Raptors, Siakam had been consistent until his last game, but 23 plus points in 6 of his last 7 games, 7 plus rebounds in 5 of his last 6 games, and then 7 plus assists in his last 5 games. Van Vliet, 6 plus assists in 6 of his last 7 games. Trent Jr., 16 plus points in 6 of his last 7 games. But the Raptors are allowing 108 plus points in their last 7 games, which is a lot more for a defensive-minded team. The Jazz, Clarkson, 20 plus points in 10 of his last 12 games. And the Jazz are allowing 115 plus points in their last 5 games. So another team to look at that are allowing a lot of points. Last but not least, the Washington Wizards. So obviously with Beal out at the moment with that hamstring. Kuzma, 25 plus points in 4 of his last 6 games. KP, Porzingis, 27 plus points in 6 of his last 7 games and 9 plus rebounds in his last 6 games. But the Wizards have lost their last 6 games and they're allowing on average 119 points per game over the last 10. It's interesting because earlier in the season they were a real defensively minded team, but this is the Wizards that we know across the last few seasons is they give up a lot of points. So look at the players against them, but then also KP and Kuzma points over as well. That is topic 3 done and dusted. I know it's probably a bit hard to swallow a lot of that information. As we said, in the show notes will be all those statistics. Reach out if you'd like some more information or you'd like me to copy and paste them across for the week. Topic 4, so deep dive, player and team insights. So we've got Dallas Mavericks. So obviously you've got Luka Doncic, the centerpiece of the Dallas offense, obviously averaging quite a lot of points, rebounds, and assists. But we've seen an uptick in his assists over the last sort of 5-6 games. We've seen Hardaway Jr. shooting it well. We've seen Bullock sort of come on a little bit. We've seen Kleber shoot it well. Guys around him are shooting it better, which means the Dallas Mavericks play better. But the difference is, can they go on the road and do that? Because they can do it at home. They lift the defensive intensity at home. They get up down the floor a bit quicker at home. But can they go out on the road and shoot as well as they need to for the Dallas Mavericks to be successful? But in the meantime, look at Doncic's assists at home with those shooters shooting well. So that's Luka's assists over at home, shooting well with his teammates shooting well. The Denver Nuggets, so Jokic, Murray, and Gordon, just looking at that combo for the second because Porter Jr. is out. We've also seen an uptick in Jokic's assists, so 8+ assists in his last 7 games, a couple of triple-doubles in there as well. And then we've also seen an uptick of Murray and Gordon's points. Now, an interesting one there, we'll quickly touch on the Murray and Jokic pick and roll. Very similar, as we mentioned, against the Timberwolves and also the Blazers. That would be one there to watch, Murray coming off that, getting his mid-range or getting the threes, or Jokic even using Murray as that pick and roll. The interesting one is Gordon. So how we best say this is, if a team has a big that comes out on the pick and roll with Jokic, or if the team doesn't have a fourth big player, and we'll use the Celtics and Warriors, for example, they've got a main center, but then their 4 spot is usually like a Wiggins or a Brown or a Tatum. That's where Gordon loves to work against those smaller type 4s, and that's where Jokic loves to get it to him down low, so he gets a lot of easy buckets. The other day, he had 29 points, and I'm pretty sure it's something like 11 of 13 shooting. So it's a key to look at when Denver comes up against a team that has a smaller 4 position. Look at Gordon's points over in that one. We saw him dominate against the Clippers because of exactly that. They've got Zubac, but then their 4th player is either Leonard, George, or Marcus Morris. So having a look at the Denver Nuggets, Jokic's assist over, Murray's points over in specific matchups, but then also Gordon's points over with a smaller 4-man. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Feel free to reach out if you've got a bit more question about that, or when Denver are playing, feel free to reach out and ask, hey, yeah, is this look good? Indiana Pacers, so Tyrese Halliburton and shooters around him. So obviously we see his assists climb. When the shooters are shooting well and teams allow shooters to shoot well, Halliburton's obviously assists are up, but also his points are up. So he's obviously got Hield, Turner, Nembhard, Mathurin all around him at shooting positions. Obviously Brissett as well. There's a couple more that I can't think off the top of my head, but that's when the Pacers are going well. But the trouble with that is transition defense. So now if Halliburton makes a pass, he's meant to be the first one back if a long rebound comes out. And that's where the team's getting a lot of, I guess, easy buckets in transition because, Hield might be in the corner or Turner might be in the corner, maybe making a shot. They'll get an easy rebound because there's no big rebounding for Indiana. And then often going they went. And then that's why you've seen the Pacers points against be super high. So I guess Halliburton does have people around him that can shoot and his assists will be up, but their transition defense lacks because of those long-range shooting. The Portland Trailblazers, touching on them. So obviously, finally, we're sort of seeing Lillard, Grant, and Simons play together. Obviously, Simons and Lillard had 30-plus points each the other night or the other day. And then we've seen them, all 3 of them also have 20-plus points in games. But look for that consistency and the starters within the Portland Trailblazers to score a lot of points because a lot of them, they don't have a traditional second unit where it's like, 5 all come off and the 5 all go on, or they'll have moments there. Either one of those 3 players will always be on with that second unit, so they'll always be scoring, or they'll always be a main option at one stage or another. So having a look into the Portland Trailblazers and that sort of scoring spree from all 3 of them. That is topic 4. Topic 5, so NBA Week 9 preview. So Tuesday we've got 7 games. Games to look at is the Hawks at the Grizzlies, Young versus Jar, the Thunder at the Mavericks, SGA versus Luka. Wolves at the Blazers, again, so round 2, Edwards, Russell, and Gobert versus Lillard, Grant, and Simons. And the Celtics and Clippers, Tatum and Brown versus, and now sort of healthy, Leonard and George, depending on minutes. Wednesday, 5 games, but look at the Warriors at the Bucks, so Curry versus Giannis, and the Celtics and Lakers. Still an interesting matchup, even with the Celtics being down in the standings. Obviously, Tatum coming off a rough game against the Warriors, but looking at a bounce back, hopefully there. Thursday, 10 games with the Knicks at the Bulls, Cavs at the Magic, Mitchell versus Luka, and then Wolves at the Clippers. Friday, 4 games, Bucks at the Grizzlies, Giannis versus Ja. Always an interesting matchup. Will Morant go at Giannis? We'll see that. Pelicans at the Jazz. Pelicans should win that one, depending on the Jazz's health. Suns at the Clippers. The Suns have been average on the road. The Clippers are coming back and bit of healthiness there. Saturday, 10 games. Warriors at the Sixers, Curry, Thompson versus Embiid and Harden. Nets at the Raptors, always interesting when KD goes up to Toronto and Irving goes there. Blazers at the Mavericks, Nuggets at the Lakers. Sunday, we see 7 games. Mavericks at the Cavs. That's the second leg of that one. The Jazz at the Bucks. The Grizzlies at the Thunder. SJ and Ja round 2. Ja said a triple-double last time. And then Pelicans at the Suns round 4. So the last one coming. Monday, we see 7 games. The Warriors at the Raptors. Excuse me, sorry. The Warriors at the Raptors. Bulls at the Wolves. Wizards at the Lakers. So that is next week's look at games. Now we've got a quick sort of look at, I guess, Tuesday's head-to-head and lines. If I just got up Bet365 and Sportsbet. So we've got the Nets favoured against the Wizards, -5 at the moment. That looks good depending on health. I'd be combining something like the Nets and a scorer, and then looking at the other 3 scorers being maybe, let's say you put in the Nets with KD 4+ rebounds, 4+ assists, and then you put a nice scoring multi there of 25, 25, 25, 25 with Kuzma, KP, Irving, and Durant. That should be nice and juicy. If I do that now quickly, the markets aren't up yet because of the healthiness of each team. Then we've got the Heat and the Pacers. The Heat are favoured there. The Pacers aren't. I'd be looking at the Pacers head-to-head in that one, depending on health. The Heat haven't been able to defend, and the Pacers are loving to score. Also, the totals over and under in that one as well. The Heat have been struggling to defend, as we covered off, and the Pacers love to score. So looking at the total over and under in that one. Then we've got the Hawks and the Grizzlies. So the Hawks coming off a back-to-back. Yes, they won against Chicago. They are traveling from Atlanta to Memphis as well, so that's something to keep in mind. I would be taking probably the Grizzlies line in that one. As we said, they've won their last 5 games by 8+ points. So that's also a good one. Good look at that. The Cleveland Cavaliers at the Spurs, being on health, being on Mitchell. I mean, the Spurs have been playing well. The over-under sit at 223.5. I'd be taking the Cavs and looking at maybe Mobley points and Allen points or their rebounds as well. So maybe a little 2-leg multi with Mobley and the Cavs head-to-head. But also the Cavs are average on the road. So just making sure you look at who's playing for Cleveland, who's also healthy for San Antonio. But that should be an easy win for Cleveland. OKC versus Dallas. So Dallas is actually quite well favored in this one, -8.5. I'd be having a look at how well they've been covering their line at home because I know they've played in quite a few close games. But Dallas should win that one. Luka should come off a well-rested and be looking to score the ball in that one. Obviously, OKC allowing plenty of points as well. The Minnesota Timberwolves and the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers, once again, -4.5. Head-to-head, 152. Over under 232. I'll be looking at the points over potentially in that one as well. And then sort of looking at probably a player multi for all those players before mentioned, Russell, Edwards, Grant, Simons, and Lillard to play well against one another once again. And then the Boston Celtics, LA Clippers, I'll be looking at a bounce-back game from Tatum. And head-to-head, I'd probably have... you'd probably have the Celtics, even though the Lakers have been playing well. I'd be looking at... the Celtics at the Clippers. I was thinking about the next day. So the Celtics and the Clippers, I'd be looking at the Celtics, even with Leonard and George. They haven't showed enough consistency, and the Celtics will not bounce back after that average performance against the Warriors away there. That is all for this evening, though. Feel free to like, follow, and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, at Sports Tips by Jellyman. We're also in the middle of creating a new Instagram page, NBA by Jellyman, which will obviously post a lot more content there. Sort of free insights, that sort of jazz. Also potentially create like a stats subscription for like a $1 a day or a couple bucks a week. Something where we can obviously promote the stats rather than not just having the recommendations. So if you're a bit lazy, on research, it'll all come in there. But feel free to also like, follow, and subscribe on all subscription platforms and also YouTube. But that is all, folks, and that is all for this evening. Happy punting. Have a successful week. Thank you for listening or watching once again.